The first time my father said I had faked my deployment, he said it in front of a judge. Not at a dinner table, not in a living room, not during one of those family arguments where everybody raises their voice and later pretends they were only upset. He said it under fluorescent courtroom lights, with his right hand resting on a stack of papers he thought would ruin me, while my sister sat behind him in a black dress and smiled like she had waited months for this part. She was never really deployed, my father said. She used that uniform to avoid taking care of her grandmother, and now she wants this court to reward her for it. The judge looked over his glasses. The room went still. My mother stared at her hands. My sister Vanessa lowered her eyes, but I saw the corner of her mouth move. My uncle shifted in the front row like he wanted to be anywhere else, except he had still chosen the seat closest to my father. I sat at the respondent's table in my Army service uniform, with a plain folder in front of me, and both hands folded on top of it. My name is Nora Bennett. I was 35 years old, a sergeant first class in the United States Army, and I had spent the last 10 years learning that the loudest person in a room is often just the person most afraid of the record. My father pointed at me. She says she was overseas, he continued. She says she was sending money home. She says my mother trusted her. But nobody in this family saw any proof. All we saw was my mother getting weaker, bills going unpaid, and Nora hiding behind the word classified every time someone asked a question. That last part was not even close to true. The proof existed. Orders, pay records, leave denial memos, email chains, care invoices, bank transfers. Every document my family had ignored for a year because ignoring them made the lie easier to carry. The judge turned toward me. Sergeant Bennett, do you wish to respond? I looked at my father. He looked pleased with himself, but not calm. There is a difference. A calm man does not keep tapping one finger on a table. A calm man does not glance at his attorney after every sentence to check whether the damage landed correctly. I looked at Vanessa. She had worn my grandmother's pearl earrings. That, more than anything, almost made me speak too soon. Instead, I said, "No, Your Honor, the records will answer." My father gave a short laugh. Vanessa whispered something to my mother. And I said nothing else, because 20 minutes earlier, Captain Naomi Pierce from the Legal Assistance Office had texted me from the courthouse security line. "I'm here. Certified packet is with me." If you have ever had people lie about you in a room where you could easily defend yourself, you know how hard silence can be. It is not peaceful. It is not weakness. It is your hands shaking under the table while your face stays still because you know that proof works better when it arrives before anger. So I let my father keep talking. By the end of that hearing, the judge would open my deployment orders on the record. My sister would take off my grandmother's earrings with trembling hands, and my father would learn that the money he accused me of stealing had been traced to an account with his own name on it. But before that happened, he had to finish the lie in public. And I let him. My grandmother, Ruth Bennett, raised me more than my parents ever admitted. She lived in a small white house at the edge of town, with green shutters, a loud screen door, and a vegetable garden that fought harder than some people. Her house smelled like lemon soap, black coffee, and the peppermint candies she kept in a blue glass dish by the phone. My father, Grant Bennett, was her oldest son. He liked being oldest. He liked being the one people called first. He liked speaking in a voice that made disagreement sound childish. He had spent most of his adult life as the family authority on things he had not earned. My grandmother's money, my mother's patience, Vanessa's excuses, and my service when it was useful at church barbecues. My sister Vanessa was 3 years younger than me and had inherited his gift for needing help without ever calling it dependency. That was Vanessa, public pride, private resentment. My grandmother saw it. She saw more than people thought. By the time I deployed, Grandma Ruth was 82 and still sharper than anyone who tried to speak slowly around her. Her knees hurt. Her blood pressure needed watching. She forgot small things, like where she had put the gardening gloves, but she never forgot who owed what, who visited, and who only called when they wanted something. Before I left, I sat with her at the kitchen table and went through her care plan. Mrs. Ellis from next door would check on her every morning. A home care aide would come 4 afternoons a week. I would pay the aide directly from my deployment allotment. My father would handle rides to medical appointments only if Mrs. Ellis was unavailable. Vanessa would not have access to Grandma's debit card. Grandma insisted on that last part. She said, "I love your sister, but that child can spend rain before it falls." I laughed so hard, I had to put my forehead on the table. Grandma did not laugh. "I mean it, Nora." "I know." She touched my sleeve. "Your father thinks because he is my son, he gets to decide what is best for my money. He does not." I looked at her then. "Do you want me to talk to him?" "No," she said. "I want you to keep records." That was my grandmother's version of prayer. Keep records. So I did. I kept copies of the care agreement, copies of the bank transfers, copies of my deployment orders, copies of the limited authorization that allowed my father to pick up prescriptions and speak to the clinic about appointment times, but not access accounts, change payees, or move funds. I sent a copy to him by email. He replied, "You always make everything legalistic." I replied, "That is because people behave better when paper is watching." He did not answer. The first 3 months overseas were ugly but normal. Long days, short sleep, dust in everything. A constant rotation of movement requests, supply shortages, maintenance issues, and people asking for things that should have been requested 48 hours earlier. Every other Sunday, I called Grandma. She would sit near her kitchen window, the phone propped too close to her face, and tell me the neighborhood news in military detail. Mrs. Ellis planted tomatoes too early. The church roof still leaked. My father had come by and complained about gas prices. Vanessa wanted to borrow $200 for temporary groceries. The home aide, Marisol, made soup too salty but had kind eyes. "You sound tired," Grandma said one night. "I am tired." "Still doing the work?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then be tired and do it anyway." That was Ruth Bennett comfort. It worked better than softness. In month 4, the calls changed. Not all at once. That is how people miss things. Grandma sounded more careful. She started saying my father was helping more. She mentioned that Vanessa had been stopping by with groceries. She said the home aide had missed a week because of billing confusion. I asked what billing confusion. "Oh, your father said he was adjusting the account, so it didn't look like you were paying for everything." I sat up straight on the edge of my bunk. "He said what?" "He said it made him uncomfortable, you sending money like I was charity." "Grandma, the aid is not charity, it's care." "I know that." "Did he touch the payment account?" A pause. "Nora," she said, "don't get yourself upset over there." That was the first alarm. The second came from Marisol, the aide, who sent me an email 2 days later from a personal account because, as she wrote, "I am worried your grandmother does not want to worry you." 2 payments had failed. My father told the agency to bill him temporarily. Then he delayed. Then he said I had authorized a family payment arrangement. I had authorized no such thing. I called my father from a communications room at 2300 my time. He answered annoyed. "Do you know what time it is here?" "Yes. Do you know why Grandma's care payments failed?" He sighed. "There was a banking issue." "What banking issue?" "I handled it." That was not my question. His voice hardened. "Nora, you are halfway across the world. I am here. You need to let people here handle things. Not by changing accounts." "Nobody changed anything important." "Send me the statements." He laughed. Actually laughed. "You're interrogating your own father from a war zone." "I am asking about Grandma's care." "You're asking because you don't trust anyone." That was a familiar door. He opened it often. If I stepped through, we would spend 10 minutes arguing about my tone instead of his behavior. I said, "Send the statements by tomorrow." He hung up. The next morning, I got an email from Vanessa. Subject line, "You're hurting Dad." The message was long, emotional, and almost entirely useless. She said Dad was doing his best. She said Grandma cried because I made everything feel like a business. She said I was acting like the army made me better than everyone. She said family is not a chain of command. I forwarded it to my personal folder, called Bennett Records. Then I called the bank. Because I was deployed and the account involved my allotment, it took time, verification, and 3 separate calls to reach the right department. What I learned made my chest go cold. The direct care payments had been redirected through an intermediate account 2 months earlier. The authorization came through a notarized family care form. My signature was not on it. Grandma's was. Or something pretending to be. The bank representative could not tell me everything over the phone, but she said enough. The account, receiving the redirected funds, was linked to my father. I filed a report from overseas that day. Then I went to my commanding officer, explained only what I could verify, and requested emergency leave to address elder financial exploitation. The request was denied at the first level because our unit was in a critical movement cycle and Grandma was not hospitalized. I did not blame the commander. It was the regulation. It still felt like being asked to watch a house burn from another country because the flames had not yet reached the roof. I called Grandma that night. She sounded smaller. Not confused, smaller. "Dad changed the payment account," I said. She was quiet. "Grandma." "He said it was easier," she whispered. "Did you sign anything?" "He brought papers. He said they were so he could help until you came home." "Did you read them?" I tried. That was the sentence that broke me for the first time. Not cried, broke, quietly, a fracture somewhere behind my ribs. I said, "I'm going to fix it." She said, "I know." I did what soldiers do when panic is useless. I built a packet. Deployment orders, leave denial, allotment records, emails, banknotes, Marisol's messages, Grandma's call summaries, screenshots of Vanessa's texts, a timeline, every dollar I had sent, every failed payment, every account change I could verify. Captain Naomi Pierce entered the story 3 days later. She was a JAG officer attached to our broader command, and she had the calm of a woman who did not confuse drama with urgency. She read the packet, asked 6 questions, then said, "Your family is going to say you abandoned her." I looked at her. They already are. Not directly, but the shape is there. You are overseas. Care got interrupted. Money moved. If they control the narrative before the documents arrive, they may try to make you the problem. I hated how immediately I knew she was right. What do I do? Keep sending me everything. Do not accuse them over text unless you want to teach them what to hide. We will preserve the records first. So I kept records. Grandma died 7 weeks before I came home. It was not dramatic. It was not suspicious. Her heart simply stopped in the early morning after a hard night. Mrs. Ellis found her. Marisol called me before my father did. That detail mattered. Marisol called first. My father called 43 minutes later and said, "Your grandmother passed." Not "Mom is gone." Not "I'm sorry." Not "Are you sitting down?" Your grandmother passed. I was standing outside a supply tent with dust on my boots and a clipboard in my hand. People were moving around me. A generator hummed. Someone shouted about a missing pallet. For a moment, the world refused to rearrange itself around the fact that she was gone. "When?" I asked. "This morning." "Who was with her?" "Don't start," he said. I closed my eyes. Even grief had to wait its turn behind his defensiveness. I asked who was with her. Mrs. Ellis found her. I nodded, though he could not see me. He said the funeral would be small. He said there was no point trying to come back because arrangements had to happen quickly. He said Grandma would understand my duty. Captain Pierce helped me submit a second leave request. Approved too late. I watched my grandmother's funeral through a phone held by Mrs. Ellis from the second row, because my family did not think to stream it until she insisted. Vanessa wore black lace and Grandma's pearl brooch. My father gave a speech about devotion. My mother cried into a tissue. Nobody mentioned Marisol. Nobody mentioned the failed care payments. Nobody mentioned the woman overseas who had paid for the aid they let lapse. The estate petition came 2 months after I returned home. My grandmother's will named me personal representative and left her house in trust for sale, with proceeds to be divided after payment of debts, reimbursements for documented care expenses, and a charitable gift to the church food pantry. It was not a fortune. That was almost funny. Families can destroy themselves over amounts that would not impress a bank, but can still reveal every character in the room. My father objected. Vanessa joined the objection. They claimed I had manipulated Grandma from overseas, failed to provide care, abandoned her during a medical decline, and fabricated military obligations to avoid responsibility while positioning myself to control the estate. Fabricated military obligations. That phrase appeared in the petition. When I read it, I felt nothing at first. Then I laughed once so sharply that my attorney, a quiet probate lawyer named Elaine Morris, looked up from her notes. "That reaction concerns me," she said. "I'm either laughing or throwing the chair. Laughing is cheaper." Captain Pierce coordinated with Elaine to provide certified service documents, my deployment orders, my duty records, leave denial memoranda, pay allotments, command verification that I had been overseas on the dates my father claimed I was available but unwilling, bank records showing my payments toward Grandma's care, preliminary records showing the redirected funds. Elaine warned me that court could get ugly. Captain Pierce warned me that family would get uglier. They were both right. At the first hearing, my father arrived with Vanessa, my mother, my uncle, and 2 cousins who had not visited Grandma in years, but had suddenly developed strong opinions about elder care. Vanessa wore Grandma's pearls. I noticed immediately. Not because jewelry mattered, because symbols matter to people who do not have evidence. My father's attorney tried to sound restrained, but my father could not stay restrained long enough to help his own case. He insisted on speaking. He said I hid behind the army. He said I abandoned my grandmother. He said I loved paperwork more than people. He said nobody had seen proof of where I was or what I paid. Then he said it. She was never really deployed. The judge looked at him. My attorney went still. Captain Pierce had not entered yet. She was stuck at security with the certified packet because courthouse machines have a special gift for delaying exactly the documents that matter most. My father mistook the pause for opportunity. "She wears that uniform and everyone just believes her," he said. "But my mother died alone while Nora was supposedly off serving somewhere nobody can verify." My mouth went dry. Not because I was afraid. Because my grandmother had died with Mrs. Ellis holding her hand after the ambulance arrived, and my father knew it. He knew because Mrs. Ellis told him. He knew because I asked. He knew because truth had been offered to him, and he had chosen a version that helped him in court. The judge turned to me, and I said the line I had been holding like a blade. "The records will answer." 2 minutes later, the courtroom door opened. Captain Naomi Pierce stepped inside in uniform, carrying a sealed certified packet, and followed by a court clerk who looked irritated in the way clerks look when procedure has been interrupted but not violated. She did not stride like a movie. She walked like a professional who had exactly what she came to deliver. The judge looked up. Captain Pierce identified herself, her office, and the purpose of her appearance: custodian and certifying liaison for military records relevant to the proceeding. My father's expression shifted. Vanessa stopped smiling. Captain Pierce handed the packet to the clerk. The clerk brought it to the judge. The judge opened it on the bench. Paper can be louder than shouting when the right people are afraid of it. The judge read the first page, then the second. Then he looked at my father. "Mr. Bennett, you stated that your daughter was never really deployed." My father swallowed. I said we had no proof. The judge held up the first document. "This is deployment order verification." My father's attorney put a hand on his sleeve. The judge continued. "This is a command memorandum confirming Sergeant First Class Bennett's duty status during the period in question. This is a leave request and denial dated 4 weeks before Ruth Bennett's death. This is a second request approved after funeral services had already occurred." My mother covered her mouth. The judge turned another page. "These are pay allotment records showing regular transfers from Sergeant Bennett's military pay to Ruth Bennett's care provider." Vanessa whispered, "What?" I looked at her earrings. Grandma's pearls looked different now. The judge's voice sharpened slightly. "And this appears to be a bank notice regarding redirected funds." Elaine stood. "Your Honor, we have additional bank records and witness statements regarding those redirected funds. We are prepared to submit them." My father's attorney stood quickly. "Your Honor, we would request time to review." The judge looked at him. "You filed allegations that Sergeant Bennett fabricated military obligations and failed to provide care. Did you not review whether military records existed before making those allegations?" The attorney did not answer fast enough. Captain Pierce remained standing near the clerk's desk, hands relaxed, face unreadable. The judge turned to her. "Captain Pierce, can you confirm whether these documents are certified records?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Can you confirm Sergeant Bennett's deployment status during the dates disputed in the petition?" "Yes, Your Honor. Sergeant First Class Bennett was deployed and unavailable for in-person care. She also submitted emergency leave requests when she became aware of issues with her grandmother's care. The records before the court reflect that." My father stared at the table. The judge continued. "Can you confirm the pay allotments?" "Yes, Your Honor. The records show recurring transfers from Sergeant Bennett's military pay designated for care-related expenses." My mother began crying then. Quietly, but not quietly enough. Vanessa removed one pearl earring. Then the other. She put them in her purse with shaking hands. I do not know if anyone else noticed. I did. My father leaned toward his attorney, whispering urgently. The attorney shook his head once, almost imperceptibly. There are moments when a lawyer realizes the client has brought him a family story and called it evidence. The judge looked down at the file again. "Mr. Bennett, this court takes allegations of elder neglect seriously. It also takes unsupported allegations against a deployed service member seriously." My father said nothing. That was new. The judge set the page down. "The petition will not proceed on the theory that Sergeant Bennett fabricated deployment or failed to provide support without further evidentiary basis. The court will allow examination of the financial redirection issue, including the account receiving care funds. Counsel will be prepared to address that at the next hearing." My father's face lost color. Vanessa looked at him. The hearing ended without thunder. No gavel slammed. No one fainted. Nobody confessed from the gallery. Real life rarely gives you the clean satisfaction of a courtroom explosion. But when the judge rose and everyone stood, my father did not look at me. My mother did. Her face seemed smaller. Maybe grief had finally found the right door. Maybe fear had. Maybe both. Outside the courtroom, the hallway filled with the awkward movement of people who had arrived as an audience and were leaving as witnesses. Vanessa approached first. "I didn't know about the payments," she said. I looked at her. The old me would have wanted to believe that. The old me would have searched her face for the little sister who once cried during thunderstorms. The woman in front of me was wearing my grandmother's earrings in her purse, after letting my father call me a liar in court. You knew enough to smile, I said. She flinched. My mother tried next. Nora, your father was under pressure. I looked past her toward him. He was speaking to his attorney near the elevators, shoulders hunched, no longer the man who had filled the courtroom with certainty 30 minutes earlier. Grandma was under pressure, I said. My mother's eyes filled again. I did not soften. Captain Pierce joined me near the hallway window. You okay? She asked. I thought about lying, because soldiers are very good at making okay sound like a duty status. Instead, I said, no. She nodded. Good answer, she said. Accurate is better than easy. I almost laughed. Grandma would have liked her. The next hearing exposed the money. It took subpoenas, bank records, and one very tired accountant to trace the redirected care funds into an account my father controlled. From there, some went to legitimate care bills, but not all. Some paid Vanessa's credit card. Some paid my parents' overdue property taxes. Some became cash withdrawals that my father described as household support, as if vague words could cover exact amounts. Marisol testified. So did Mrs. Ellis. Mrs. Ellis wore a purple cardigan and brought a notebook of dates because, as she told the court, Ruth believed in writing things down. She testified that Grandma had been worried about money being moved. She testified that my father told people I was too busy being a soldier to care what happened. She testified that Grandma asked several times when Nora was coming home, then corrected herself and said, she would if they let her. That sentence hurt worse than my father's accusation. Because Grandma had known. She had known I was trying. The court removed my father from any temporary estate authority he had tried to claim. It confirmed me as personal representative under supervision. It ordered a forensic review of the redirected funds. It referred the suspected misuse to the appropriate authorities. My father hated that most. He could have survived a shouting match. He had trained for those his whole life. What he could not control was a record that did not care how loudly he explained himself. The house was eventually sold according to Grandma's wishes. Her food pantry gift was paid first. Marisol received back pay she had been too kind to demand aggressively. Mrs. Ellis received the small amount Grandma had written into the will for watching the tomatoes and the house and me. That phrase was in the document. Watching the tomatoes and the house and me. I cried when Elaine read it. The remaining estate was smaller than my family expected. Greed always imagines bigger numbers than grief leaves behind. After expenses and reimbursements, nobody got rich. Vanessa was furious. My father called it a waste. My mother said Grandma would have hated seeing us divided like this. I told her Grandma had tried to prevent exactly this. She said, you always have to be right. I said, no, I had to be believed. Those are not the same thing. 6 months after the first hearing, my father sent me a letter. Handwritten, 2 pages, no apology until the final paragraph. Most of it was explanation. He had been overwhelmed. He had felt judged. He had thought I looked down on the family. He had believed Vanessa needed help. He had not understood how the account redirection looked. He had not meant to accuse me of lying about my deployment in that way. In that way. I read the letter twice. Then I put it in the folder with everything else. I did not respond. Some people think silence after the truth is cruel. I think sometimes it is the only way to stop reopening a trial you already won. Vanessa called me once after the estate closed. I nearly let it go to voicemail. Curiosity answered. She sounded smaller than I remembered. I shouldn't have smiled, she said. That was the first honest sentence she had given me in years. No, I said, you shouldn't have. I was angry. I know. You always got to leave. There it was, the old wound under the performance. I sat at my kitchen table, looking at the blue dish of peppermint candies I had taken from Grandma's house before the sale. It was chipped at the rim. I didn't get to leave, I said. I chose service. You chose to make that abandonment because it made my life easier to resent." She cried then. I let her. When she said she was sorry, I believed she wanted to be. That is different from believing she understood. A year later, Captain Pierce retired from active duty and sent me a short email before she left the office. Subject line, records. The message said, "Your grandmother was right, keep them." I printed it. Of course I did. The folder from the case sits in my desk now. Deployment orders, leave denial, allotments, care invoices, court orders, the transcript page where my father said I had never really deployed, the transcript page where the judge read my orders into the record. I keep both pages. Not because I enjoy remembering the lie. Because the truth looks stronger beside it. Sometimes people ask why I stayed calm that day in court. They think calm is a personality trait, like eye color. It is not. Calm is work. Calm is training. Calm is having your grandmother's memory dragged through a courtroom and choosing not to hand liars the emotional reaction they came to collect. I wanted to shout. I wanted to ask my father how he slept after redirecting money meant for his mother's care. I wanted to ask Vanessa whether Grandma's pearls felt heavy. I wanted to ask my mother how many times she looked away before looking away became who she was. But I did not ask those questions in court. The records asked better ones. Where was Sergeant Bennett on July 4? Who requested leave? Who denied it? Where did her pay go? Who changed the account? Who received the money? Who claimed she sent nothing? That is the thing about proof. It does not need to be poetic. It needs to be complete. My grandmother knew that. Keep records, she said. She had said it at her kitchen table with the peppermint dish between us and sunlight coming through the curtains. I thought she meant receipts, bank statements, care notes, practical things. She did. But she also meant something else. Keep records of who you are when people misname you. Keep records of what you did when they say you did nothing. Keep records of the truth, not because truth always wins quickly, but because lies love empty rooms. My father filled a courtroom with a lie. My silence held the door open. And then Captain Pierce walked in with the file. Everything after that was just the record speaking.